Hello everyone, Lesleyanne here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if this is the very first time you literally just come across my channel, then welcome. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, then I'd be absolutely delighted if you were to give this video a like and a subscribe. It's absolutely free to subscribe. So as I've said, my name is Lesleyanne and my channel is mainly, well, it is based on lifestyle, on my own lifestyle. So that could include everything from cleaning, shopping hauls, crafting, cooking, time with family, a little bit of mature beauty and skincare, plus size fashion, you name it really. If it's kind of part of my life, then I will share it with you. But today's video is something that has been requested a fair few times. If you are new, of course, to my channel, then I need to say that I've got several illnesses. Right, Pepper, come on please. Sorry, the dogs are like... Chris, my husband, has just popped down to the dump to get rid of some rubbish, so... And one of the little dogs we've got here, Pepper, is whinging for him. Pepper, come on over here, come on. Okay, so let me get back to it. So yeah, I have several kind of illnesses and it's been requested several times, and I have done videos in the past, but of course they need updating, don't they, from time to time, because things do change. And I've been asked, as I say, several times if I could do a video on my health issues and kind of how it affects me, really. So where do I start? I'm going to start, so I'm not going to count for any of like the childhood illnesses. I mean, as a child, when my mother was pregnant with me, she had tuberculosis, and so they had to induce the labour 2 months early so that they could treat her, basically. So I was born 3 pounds 8 ounces. I had a blood transfusion, so way back then, because I'm going to be 66 this year, so way back then, quite a miracle I made it, I guess. But I did. I'm a fighter. But since then, I've always had like a very weak chest, and I was always checked annually until the age of 14 for chest x-rays, etc., probably because of the TB that my mum had. And so that was just a regular thing that they kind of kept an eye on. However, I have sort of several times throughout my life, like childhood, becoming an adult and a grown woman, I've had several episodes of having pneumonia. But so where am I going to start with this? I'm going to start with how... So this is the point when I need to say that I have 6 children. I gave birth to 6 children myself. So I've always been very busy, a very busy lady. My husband went out to work. I kind of in between times did work, and then I'd be pregnant, and then, you know, so on and so on, like most families out there. But yeah, we were very fortunate. We had a large enough house, etc., and we were able to afford the family that we had. We were very lucky. But of course it was a lot of hard work, as you would expect. 6 children, 2 adults. We always had 2 dogs and a cat and maybe a rabbit and a guinea pig. And, you know, I was one of those mums that if one of the girls came home, and it was usually my Holly, she'd come home with something behind her back, you know, Mum, yes, Holly, I was just waiting for it. I found this, and it would be a little bird that she'd found that was injured, and so we'd either do what we could to bring it back to life, or we'd take it to the vets, or it could be anything, any animal with Holly. My friend's got some kittens, could we have one? We end up with 2. Yeah, I was one of those mums that I was an easy target to persuade, probably because of my own love of animals, and it kind of justified me having them if it was like allowing the kids to have them, if you like me. So yeah, let's get back to, I was very active and everything. And then I became extremely tired at one particular stage of my life. The kids were all sort of little and everything. And I was really fatigued and I started to gain weight. I'd never gained weight. I was always like, I don't know, 8 stone 2, 8 stone 7, came out of hospital after giving birth smaller than I was when I became pregnant because of just looking after my family. But yeah, I started to gain weight. I was lethargic, I was tired, my hair became thin, and so I went to see my doctor. And one of the things she said was, I think we need to do a thyroid test. So had that done, and she said, your thyroid is looking like it's becoming very underactive. So I did another test a few weeks later, and of course it was an underactive thyroid gland. So, you know, I was treated for that. And I remain on thyroxine until today, so that's been like 30 odd years. My dose, it did increase gradually, but I've been on the same dose, 125 a day for years and years and years, and it's just stabilising it lovely. And then a little while after, I apologise if this is TMI for any guys that are watching, but I started to have the most horrendous time of the month. Absolutely awful. And in fact, I would be bleeding for, say, maybe 25 days out of a month, and heavy, and you know. So again, I went back to see my GP, and you know, she said, I'm going to refer you to see a gynecologist. At the time, we did have private medical insurance at the time, so I was fortunate and able to see a gynecologist really quickly. This was on a Friday. She phoned up there and then when I was in the consulting room with her, and I was able to pick the consultant I wanted to see. She advised me to go with one particular one. And so I did that, and I had an appointment for the Monday. So I went to the hospital on the Monday, and you know, they did everything that they needed to do to check everything, etc. And I had a hysterectomy on Friday. It was really that quick. There was no waiting or anything, but it was just literally that my womb had completely had enough. You know, it was worn out. It was worn, it was breaking down, it was just horrendous. And you know, the consultant said that it would never reverse, it would only get worse, if it could have got any worse. And you know, in actual fact, my womb had done its job. It grew 6 babies, so I feel so lucky. And I know that some ladies feel when they're going to have a hysterectomy, they kind of feel that they're losing a bit of their femininity. And honestly, you're not. Your womb isn't the organ that makes you feminine. Honestly, I mean, it's a vital part. I mean, you know, and I understand. I do understand how some ladies think. I became emotional over mine, but I felt as though it had really given me what I'd wanted, and that was to carry 6 babies. I had a set of twins in there as well, so it got really tired, you know, having the twins. And then I had one more after that, which was Hannah. And I felt that I was doing my womb a favour. I know this might sound bizarre to some people, but I felt as though I was giving my womb permission to rest up now. Do you know what I mean? It was like I'd almost buried it. Obviously I hadn't, but it was as though I had. I felt really blessed with the job that my womb had done for me, and I certainly did not feel less of a woman for having a hysterectomy at all. It kind of meant that I could get my life back a bit more, and well, actually a lot more, and to spend more time with my children without all those interruptions that the month kind of brought along with it, you know. So that was that. I was trying to remember everything in order. I'll probably get a lot of it all back to front, you know, because it's going back way. So that was, how old was I then? I would have been about, I was about 36, and I'm 66 this year. So yeah, 30 years ago. As I've already said, I've always been susceptible to getting like chest problems. And then, I mean, I'd gone into like a bit of an early menopause, because obviously having hysterectomy does that. So I'd gone into an early menopause, and I kind of like handled it. That was fine. I had my moments where I was stood at the kitchen sink and I'd be sobbing, I'd be crying. I had no idea why. Why the hell am I crying? Why? I don't know why I'm crying. You know, all the things that the menopause brings, the hot flushes, the night sweats, the unable to concentrate, the feeling sad, all of those emotions that we get when we're menopausal. Some more weight gain. I went back to see my doctor and I was put on HRT and felt absolutely brilliant. Of course, that wasn't that long lived, because back then, I don't know what it is now, but so I would have been like in my late 30s, I guess. But at the time you could only be on HRT until you were 50, and then you had to come off it. So once I got to 50, I had to come off it. And I've got to be honest, as I said, I'm going to be 66 in June, and I'm still going through the menopause. The symptoms have reduced way down now. However, I do still get a night sweat here and there. I do still get hot flushes here and there. As I say, they are very far and few between now, thank goodness. I think, oh my goodness me, it's been a long process, but I'm still not there yet, but I'm getting there. And then I became really ill, very ill. Started, I got a cough, I was hot, I was cold, I had a temperature, and I just had trouble breathing. Went to the doctors because I kind of knew, okay, I've got some sort of chest infection. Went to the doctors, and I had a pneumonia. Was obviously given antibiotics, you know, sent home with antibiotics. Things didn't improve, they just kind of got worse and worse, and I sort of was on the decline. So I ended up being admitted into hospital, which was something that wasn't new to me when it came to sort of pneumonia. You all right, little boy? Yeah, so I was admitted into hospital. Anyway, it turns out I had bird flu. So that was my very first encounter of having bird flu. Now, because of that, I started to develop like painful joints, etc., and I was under the respiratory department at the hospital, and then eventually, you know, when I recovered, I had to keep going back. I went back for 6 months, sort of, you know, quite frequently, backwards and forwards as an outpatient. But these pains in my joints, they just continued to get worse. And then it was decided by the consultant at respiratory, he said now one of the side effects of bird flu can be joint pain. Well, it is joint pain. However, we're 6 months on now and you shouldn't have that. It doesn't last that long. So I'm going to refer you to rheumatology. So I got referred to rheumatology, and hey ho, after having all the tests that you have done, etc., I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which was extremely hard to manage with a young family, the pain. My then husband, he was self-employed, so it was incredibly difficult for him to take any time off work to help, because obviously we had a mortgage and 6 children and, you know, a couple of cars and all the rest of it. But it was becoming sort of harder and harder. At one stage I couldn't even put my feet to the floor. The pain was excruciating. The pain for me started in my feet and my hands, my fingers and my wrists. That's where it all started. So let's kind of like go on 30 sort of years. I have probably been on every medication that there has been for rheumatoid arthritis. They kind of have to start you off with like this and this, and I think I started off on sulfasalazine, and other things, and then that kind of worked for a while, then stopped as the illness, you know, it progressed and took over more. Then I was on, can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll pop it in here on the screen when I remember what it is, when I edit the video. And that was brilliant. I felt fantastic on it. I had such an improvement. However, it really messed up my liver. So then I was under a liver consultant and I had to stop taking it. So stopped taking it. I was on alternative things, trying to find alternative things that would help. It really wasn't. Once my liver had repaired itself, because that's a good thing about your liver, it can repair itself, and it had repaired itself, and they thought they would try me again with, gosh, that's annoying me, I can't remember. Anyway, so they tried me again. I felt brilliant. You know, the arthritis responded beautifully to it. I end up back seeing the consultant for the liver because of course it messed my liver up again, and then I was told that's it, you can't have it again, you just can't have it again, because obviously with it affecting the liver I had other complications then. So I was still backwards and forwards, trying my way, like walking through treacle, this drug, that drug, loads of different drugs being thrown at me. At the time I had gold injections, I was on steroid injections, I got taken, I was going into hospital once a month for, was it infliximab? It might have been, for like infusions, to try and kind of keep it all at bay. And this was going on for years and years and years. And so this was just going on for absolutely years. It was just try, different medications. If they messed any of my organs up, obviously they had to stop. But the arthritis in my body is virtually everywhere. There isn't one place really. Like some people say, oh, they've got it in their knees, they've got it in their this, that and the other. With mine, it's like a polyarthritis, which they sort of use the word poly for everywhere. So it does affect the whole of my body. And I have a very good day. Wow, I never have a perfect day. I spend every single day with an element of pain, some days worse than others. Of course, I have my flare-ups. And I have learned to manage my pain up here very, very well. I've always been good with pain. I have got a really high pain threshold, which isn't always a great thing, because obviously when your body's in pain, it's a reaction to something not right in your body. but because I manage my pain quite well, certain things sometimes get to a degree where they would prefer them not to have got to, had my pain threshold been sort of less. I would have presented earlier with some of the signs and the symptoms. Anyway, so let's go back now to possibly 12 years, 13 years ago. I was very ill again. I became extremely ill. I was coughing, high temperature. The alarm bells go, oh, it's another chest infection. No, I'm not going to go to the doctors yet. I don't want to waste their time. I'll give it a few more days, you know, as you do sometimes. Well, I tend to do that anyway. Oh, it'll get better. It'll be okay. You know, recognise all the signs. Anyway, it got to the stage where I became so poorly, really poorly, and made an appointment to go down to the doctors that day. And it was just literally down the road. I could walk to my doctor's. So Chris and I went down there. It was an appointment about 5 o'clock in the evening, actually, because I had the same day appointment. And, excuse me, the doctor looked at me. He did like my oxygen levels, and he got on the phone straight away. And he said to my husband, have you got the car? And he said, well, at home, it's only up the road. And he said, can you get the car and take your wife to the hospital? I'm ringing them to let them know that she's on her way, because that's quicker than getting an ambulance out to her. So I got taken to the hospital by Chris, and they were waiting for me and everything. And because I got taken straight through to the sort of like one of the wards. Cut a very long story short, and of course given all these different antibiotic drip and steroids and nebulizers and, you know, one thing and another. And I was in there for 10 days at that time, and then I kind of responded and sort of started to get better, and I started to sort of show lots of signs of improvement. And I was going to be allowed home, and then I took a turn for the worse again. I was in again for another maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I was in a long time, and they were trying to fathom out what was wrong with me. They just couldn't decide, because the infection had cleared, but I was still in a bad way. So where we live, the nearest team of thoracic surgeons is the Royal Brompton Hospital in London. So they were on board as well. So I had my rheumatologist, I think at one time I had about 7 different consultants around me, because obviously when you've got your breathing issues, puts a strain on your heart as well. So I had all these different consultants, along with the Royal Brompton, trying to make a diagnosis of what was actually wrong with me. Anyway, sorry about that. I just had a little break because Chris has just come back from going to the dump and popping to Tesco's. So where did I get to? So yeah, there was it took a long time to find a diagnosis of what was actually wrong with me. And so it turns out that I have rheumatoid arthritis lung condition. So it's very rare, but it does happen. Obviously it happened to me, that the arthritis has now gone into my lungs, which is what was given me, obviously, not only the pain, but the difficulty in breathing, etc, etc, etc. So kind of what's happened is, so if you can imagine, you've got your lungs, that's the lungs, and then you've got your little alveoli in there, and they all move around, don't they? So when you cough, they help cough up, you know, because they kind of move and they help to get stuff out of your lungs. In both of my lungs, the bottom quarter, are not working properly. So all the little alveoli and everything at the bottom quarter of both lungs is like, I guess the only way I can describe it really is like coral. When you've seen coral out of the sea and it's all like hard, it's like that, kind of like living on reduced lung capacity. In actual fact, it's actually a little bit more than a quarter now. It has kind of, maybe not quite half, but it's not half, but it's more than a kind of a quarter now. Thankfully, not many people do get, but you can. Obviously I did. One of the other places that you can get it is in your heart. It can go to your heart. Currently, my heart is okay. Touch wood, is okay. So how did they treat me? What did they do? So they all put their little thinking caps on because they hadn't actually come across it. And not one of those consultants had a patient with it. So they all put their thinking caps on, and then they came to me to say that the way they wanted to treat it was with chemotherapy. I was kind of like, really? Why? You know, I couldn't understand, couldn't get my head around that. But what they wanted to do was to try to get rid of any cells in my lungs that were kind of not really doing their job anymore, and try to replace them with some nice new fresh cells. So of course I agreed to that. They know what they're talking about. So I had chemotherapy every 2 weeks for 6 months. So every 2 weeks I would be going into hospital for the day, having it administered into, you know, to my arm, and then anti-sickness, and then I'd come home with anti-sickness tablets as well. I was a bit wiped out, Teddy. I was a bit wiped out that day, and the following day I would also feel sick, but I wasn't sick because I took the sickness tablets, and then the next day I'd feel absolutely fine, and then I'd be fine until I built up to 2 weeks time. The only thing that was difficult really was the fact that we just had a new grandchild and we had grandchildren, and I couldn't see them for 6 months because my immune system was so bad at the time. And you know what little children are like, they've always got something, haven't they, those that are at school and everything. So it was kind of like meet them out in the open air somewhere, but no kind of physical contact. That was really difficult, but we got through it. We got through that. Then I had to go and have bronchoscopy, which is where they take you into theatre, but you are awake, you're sedated, but you are awake, and you're sat up because they have to do it whilst you're sat up. And they, in actual fact, they described it like it's a bit like drowning one lung at a time kind of thing. So what they do is they kind of go up through the nose, if they can. If they can't, for whatever your anatomy is like, they can't, they have to go down through your throat. They go into your airways anyway, so they go into the lung and they wash it out, and they wash it out, they flush it out, they take biopsies of your lung, give it another wash out, clean out, steroid it, all the rest of it. And then they do that lung, and then they go in and they do the next side. And it kind of is, the first time I had it done, I felt panicky because obviously I had one lung that wasn't operating brilliantly anyway, and the other one just wasn't at all. It was filling up with water, and that was horrible. And they were just, somebody was in front of me talking to me, trying to get me to focus. That was horrible. However, I've now had several of those, and as much as I don't like them, because I don't, I've had several of them, and after I've had them I feel brilliant because it's got a load of rubbish out of my lung. Because of course the problem that I get is because the bottom of those alveoli are solid and they don't do all this, I can't clear the bottom of my lungs. So That's how I'm prone to getting a lot of infection, like lung infections, pneumonias, that sort of thing. And when I get coughs and stuff, it's just kind of there always, because until I've had a bronchoscopy to kind of clear them out. So then sort of many admissions later because of it, and you know, I then had, well, I actually felt okay this particular day, and Chris and I were out shopping, and then I got a phone call. Do you remember I got a phone call from the environmental health people?
Yeah.
I got a phone call from the environmental health people to say that my last blood test has shown that I have bird flu again. So I'd got bird flu again. But I felt fine. I didn't, but obviously I didn't have the symptoms, but I had it, had the infection and could spread it and all the rest of it. So obviously I was at home isolating yet again, given all the antibiotics, all the rest of it. And sort of like several admissions later, constantly it was the same sort of thing. In all honesty, it was in for the same thing. And then it turns out that they were very happy with the outcome of the chemotherapy, that it had done its job for now, is what they said. And they said that it will at some point go full cycle, and then I will have to be written up for a different chemotherapy next time, because the same one doesn't do that job twice. So that's kind of that side of it. I can't really think of what else there is. Oh, I've had occasions where I was having what they call a syncope, and for some unknown reason, I would just suddenly just pass out. Chris has found me on the kitchen floor whilst I was prepping the vegetables for Sunday dinner, so I had a sharp knife in my hand. Thank goodness I didn't land on it. I've come down the stairs. As I was coming down the stairs, I've had it. I've just had it sat up watching TV, and all of a sudden I'd go in the car, or that sort of thing, not as a driver, as a passenger. So I was then under the neurologist for a while, honestly. And obviously I couldn't drive for a while. They didn't know what was causing it. I had a heart monitoring for 3 years, I think. So if anything happened, I had a machine at home and one to take out and about with me. If anything happened to my heart, like at night or at home, it would send it sort of through to the hospital via sort of Wi-Fi. Was it like a Wi-Fi thing, wasn't it? Through the internet. The heart
monitor, yeah,
internet thing, yeah. So it would send the rhythms through to the hospital, and I'd get a phone call or whatever. However, and I must say, one time that I hated it anyway, because it was embarrassing, because you didn't know when it was going to happen. I had no kind. Sometimes I'd say to Chris, I don't feel very well, and I'd sit down, and then it would happen. But majority of the time I didn't know. I remember once we were in Southsea, and you were at Luke's flat, and I nipped out to get something, didn't I? We were shopping, and I nipped out to get some shopping, and then all I remember was being in the back of an ambulance with Chris. Did they phone you? Or
I phoned your phone, and the ambulance people answered.
Oh, that's it, yeah. So Chris was phoning for me, trying to find me, and the ambulance, one of the paramedics answered, and obviously I was in the ambulance going into hospital because it happened yet again, and many times it happened. And then by the time I'd got to hospital, my heart rhythm and everything was fine. So I had all different tests done to make sure there wasn't any tumours in the brain and all the rest of it, and there wasn't. So we didn't really know what caused it. And then we were on a holiday one year in Santorini, and Was it the year Nathan got married? It was the year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That Nathan, our son, got married. So we were all out there for the wedding, and this one particular night, Elsie, this one particular night they do like a big massive firework display, and Chris had booked this sort of wine bar restaurant. You're up high on sort of like the veranda bit overlooking the caldera, and then they've got all the fireworks that they're doing out on one of the other like islands out there, aren't they? And it's an amazing firework display. If ever you get to go to Santorini, please look out for that. Anyway, so we sat there, we'd eaten, we'd been drinking, and this lovely place, they'd brought out blankets for everyone's laps because they had to wait for it to be dark, you know. So, excuse the dog, you know. It's not a video if she doesn't get into it, is it? And then all of a sudden the fireworks start, and we're all like, oh wow, this is amazing. We're all into it, looking at the fireworks, how spectacular they were. Then suddenly it was the end for me, because I'd had a syncope attack. And I don't know at what point Chris kind of noticed or what, because of course everybody was looking up at the sky, not looking at me, and I have no idea when he sort of realised what happened. But let's just say I missed it. I missed most of it. I just saw a little bit, but I missed the crescendo of it all, which was pants. However, let's go on a few more years now, and I haven't had a syncope attack now for a long time, many years. I don't have the machine in anymore, that's gone. So whatever caused it has kind of righted itself. I'm allowed to drive again, because obviously I wasn't allowed to drive at the time for a while, but yeah, I'm allowed to drive again now and everything. So that kind of, what that was, we don't know why, but there you go. Whilst I was going through all the treatment, the chemotherapy, etc, I was on enormously high doses of steroids for my lungs, such high doses, and I was on high doses of steroids for a good couple of years or so. And of course, if you're on high dose steroids for a long time, you bloat, your face becomes what they call a moon face. It becomes very round, and I will insert a picture here of what I looked like when I was on steroids. We were in Bude on holiday, and I had my photograph taken with a couple of lifeguards on the beach. And I thought I looked wonderful because I felt wonderful. I didn't look wonderful. But it's got me to my now place. So then sort of leading on sometime later again, I was diagnosed with being diabetic, managing that quite well. I'm also asthmatic. I've been asthmatic since I was very young, you know, obviously that sort of stems from all my lung problems. So I do have inhalers. I have a tablet to control the diabetes. And then of course I had a fall, maybe 3 years ago, something like that now. We were out walking the dogs and I just tripped. I literally stubbed my toe on a piece of like paving slab that was sticking up a little bit, and I went over. I was like Fred Flintstone, you know, when you're going to fall and your little legs are going like this because you're trying to not fall, and I ploughed into a fence and it knocked me flying. Anyway, that was another ambulance jobby, and I had a broken humerus. A lot of you will know this because if you've been with me for a while, you know this, and you know you were with me when I had all these problems. And yeah, so I broke my humerus in about 5 parts, different places. COVID hit, and then I had to wait for surgery because COVID hit. And well, first of all, they were trying to heal it, what they call conservatively. So hoping that it might repair itself by just sort of like the weight hanging down. So they kind of sling you all up in these slings, this sort of sling thing. You'll see it in the photographs, in the hope that the bones will fuse back together, but they didn't with me. And so once COVID they were like doing planned surgeries again, I was sort of taken in and seen by the trauma surgeon, who was amazing, and had surgery. So I have a metal bar, a metal plate, screws and everything from like down here, from my elbow all the way up around here to here somewhere. So all of this is all new. Yeah, it was a long operation. It took about 7 hours. They had to sort of scrape the muscle and the tendons and everything off the bone so that they can obviously plate everything up. But I was just so relieved to get that over and done with, and had a bit of physio, but didn't need hardly any, because I was determined to get my arm working as much as I could, and I've probably got as much of a fully functioning arm as I'm ever going to get now. So I can go like this arm, obviously I can go like this and do this. This arm I can go to there, so that's brilliant. And I can go to, I can rub this side more, but trying to rub this side is difficult. And then when I do that, I can feel the twist. It's a really weird thing, really, really weird. But yeah, that's all done and dusted and forever grateful. And now I'm just waiting to have a surgery, a spinal surgery. My vertebrae at the bottom, I can't remember whether they're E, F, whatever they are. They're all kind of like on one side wearing or worn, and then this side and then that side. So the consultant kind of described it a bit like Jenga, and like if you pull one of the bricks out, it will fall. Pull another one and it will fall. At the moment it's kind of quite well balanced, but they're all falling. So I've had a few sort of treatments and little procedures done, you know, where they give you nerve blocks and all that sort of thing, and it helped temporarily, but because of the severity of what it is and how it will be, they need to put a rod in the spine to stabilize it, because these Jenga things, if they keep happening, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, and I don't want to end up in a wheelchair, unless obviously I have absolutely no choice. If I can do something about it, I know that there's always a risk and that I could end up in a wheelchair after surgery, and if I do, I do, but I have to do whatever I can to try to preserve what I've got, and I'm going to do that. So that's kind of where we are now, really. I see my spinal surgeon either later this month or next month, I think. But I know that's a real kind of lengthy procedure, and obviously the recovery from that is going to be quite difficult, I think, but I'm prepared to try. So where are we today then? So I think I've covered most things. I might have missed a few little bits and bobs out. So currently I now, for my rheumatoid arthritis, I have 32 tablets I take every single day, divided up into three lots: morning, afternoon, evening, yeah, divided into 3 different amounts. Once a week I have to inject myself with a biological injection, which is incredible. It has helped me so much. So yeah, so life is quite busy because obviously I have all these different consultants, departments that I have appointments with. I'm kind of just trying to live a normal life the best you can, because you know you don't have a choice, and I'm not one to wallow. Of course I have my moments where I, you know, why me, why can't I do this, why can't I do that, because obviously lots of things are very difficult, and with the arthritis you become very, very fatigued, and then if you get a flare up it knocks you back. If I have any kind of infection going on, then I have to stop my biological injections whilst I've got that. I think that kind of sums everything up. So if ever you see me looking completely knackered, which is probably quite a lot, if you see me looking tired, unwell, breathless, any of those things, it will be as a side effect of one of the illnesses that I've got, and like, I guess my struggle, I suppose. But it's a struggle you learn to live with, like most things, you know. If we're diagnosed with things, you have no choice other than to just learn to live with it, carry on. And I still, to this day, thank my lucky stars I'm here, and I feel grateful that I got to 65. I'm nearly 66, and I appreciate a lot of people, and a lot of people that have shared my life haven't reached that age. And so I just feel privileged and grateful that I'm here where I am. So for those of you that have asked about all my illnesses, I hope this has covered everything for you. I'll see you in the next video. Well done if you stayed right until the end of this, because it's been quite a lengthy one, hasn't it? Let me know in the comments how you are, how you manage, because I know a lot of you are in very similar boats with one thing or the other. So yeah, please let me know. And as I've said, subscribe to my channel, and then you can keep updated with how things go along with me. Yeah, gonna love you and leave you, and have a bit of lunch. Take care everyone, won't you? Chat to you soon. Bye for now then. Bye. Bye bye.